Hi, my name is Bonnie Ying, and today we're going to be using LLaMA to conduct research of public companies' accounting policies. To be publicly listed in the US, a company is required by the US Securities and Exchange Commission to file financial statements that are prepared in accordance with US generally accepted accounting principles. A common task for the accounting department of a public company is to perform peer company accounting policy research. While specialized knowledge is required to interpret the accounting research findings, the actual compilation of the policy research is often quite manual and time-consuming. In this project, we attempt to leverage a large language foundation model, fine-tune it with specialized Form 10 case data, and build an agent to retrieve relevant accounting policies from peer companies. Our goal is to optimize the manual and time-consuming process of peer company accounting policy research. We built 3 agents that are trained on 3 different datasets to see if some aspects of the training data can help better fine-tune the model for this task. We found that the agents trained on the 2 finance Q&A datasets to perform significantly better than the agent that is trained on accounting textbooks. In this experiment, we find that training datasets that are more generic but more closely mirror the agent task, which is Q&A, are more useful than the ones that include domain-specific knowledge but is not well structured. And here are the results. Agent 1 and 2, which are trained on finance Q&A datasets, got most of the test questions correctly. Agent 3 is trained on unstructured accounting texts and performed rather poorly. Here's a list of the technologies we used. We used Meta's LLaMA 3.18 billion instruct as the foundation model. While powerful, this model is smaller than Meta's latest LLaMA 3.3 instruct model, which has 70 billion parameters. For fine-tuning, we used the Unsloth library, as well as Hugging Face supervised fine-tuning trainer. For the retrieval augmented generation pipeline, we needed to use the open-sourced large English embedding model from the Beijing Academy of Artificial Intelligence for embedding. And then for the vector database, we used Facebook's AI semantic search library. The codes are run on Google Colab, and it took approximately 1 hour, including testing time. There are 3 main parts to the implementation. First, we install the relevant dependencies, set the API keys, and import the relevant packages. Secondly, we fine-tune the LLaMA 3.1 model. And then last but not the least, we set up the RAG agents. Let's switch to the demo and take a look at the notebook. This notebook is largely based on the work of Adam Lizek. We've changed a few parameters, used a slightly more updated foundation model, and added 2 additional datasets to test the agent's relative performance. We also tailored the SEC 10K extraction to target the sections with accounting policy information, given that's the task of this project. Here in this section, as we discussed, we started installing the dependency, setting the API keys, and importing the packages that we need for this project. We're going to need 2 APIs. One is the Hugging Face token for accessing the gated LLaMA model, and also an SEC API key for extracting the 10K information. And these are the packages that we're going to need. And then in the next section, this is really where the majority of the work comes in. We're going to fine-tune the LLaMA foundation model. The first step is to initialize the model and the tokenizer using Unsloth. Unsloth has a handy sample notebook to show you how to do that, which you can see here. Next, we're going to add the adapter. We're going to use the LLaMA 3.1b instruct model, as you can see here. Which you can find on Hugging Face. And the next step is we're gonna add the adapter for fine-tuning. This is something that's discussed in lecture 14. We're using the method called parameter efficient fine-tuning, which based on the research from this paper, which is linked here, it produces fairly good results. As we discussed, we're gonna be building 3 separate models using 3 fine-tuning training datasets. This is model 1. Let's try to run this, which is based on the first data set. And then we have model 2 and model 3. And then the next step, we're going to start importing and formatting the data. The first data set is from the same one that Adam Lisek used for his notebook, which doesn't have specific accounting context, but sets up the question and context and answer nicely, which we found here. The second data set we found on Hugging Face, which is larger than the first data set. It contains about 70,000 rows compared to 7,000 rows in the first data set. But the answers are not in the form, not from the Form 10K. And then the third data set, I basically did a search on Hugging Face with the word accounting, and it returned 27 data sets. I went through each one of them, and this one seems to have the most information, and it looks like basically just from a text from an accounting textbook. So an important part of this code is to ensure that we're setting up the question context and response appropriately. And you can see that this is the same as the column in dataset 1, question, answer, and context. And we do the same for dataset 2 and dataset 3. And the next step, we're gonna define the trainer for the model and start training the model. Here we're going to be using Hugging Face's supervised fine-tuning trainer, which uses the training datasets to further fine-tune the foundation model to improve the performance of our specific task, which is to extract the correct accounting policy. Here we're running this on Google Colab, so we're limiting the training to 100 training steps, which you can see here. This is only really a fraction of one epoch, and we're going to be doing this for each of the 3 models. And as you can see, this went through all the training here, and this is about 100 steps. Next, we are setting up 3 inference functions to generate responses from the 3 trained models. And you can see this is like from model 1, and this is from model 2, and this is from model 3. We also have a function that extracts just the response from the text generated from the inference of the model. And we then now that we've trained all 3 models, you can see that all 3 of them does a decent job in generating a reasonable response, even though the wordings are slightly different. And then in the last section, now that we've trained the 3 models and set them up for inference, we're going to build the RAG pipeline to retrieve the accounting policies that we need. This was discussed in lecture 14, and the flow is gonna be as follows. We're gonna first have the user ask a question, and then we're gonna retrieve the information context from the relevant Form 10Ks and perform a similarity search of the vectors and produce an augmented text. This text is then used as a new context for running inference. So first we set up the pipeline for extracting the 10K file links using the SEC API. As we discussed earlier, we're gonna use section 7, which is the MD&A section, and section 8, which is the financial statement sections, which has the relevant accounting policy context. Next, we're gonna set up the embedding for, as we discussed before, using the large English embedding model from Beijing Academy of Artificial Intelligence. Next, we're going to define the vector database. Here, we'll be taking the Form 10K and data and split the text into manageable size and then store them in VectorDB, which allows us to perform efficient similarity search and retrieval. So for this test, we'll be using Meta's Form 10K. And next, we're going to define a retrieval function, which query the VectorDB to find and return relevant text chunks that match a given query using the similarity search. And as you can see, we tested it here and it's generating fairly accurate results. And in the last step, this is where we create the 3 accounting policy agents using inferences from each of the 3 models. We asked each of the 3 models the same 8 accounting questions and we evaluate their performance. Let's ask the first agent a question on revenue recognition. Okay, let's try agent 1. I think by running the model earlier, I was messing up something, but this worked previously. When does Meta recognizes revenue? Okay, it seems like it's generating the right answer. Let's try something else, which is how does Meta translate foreign currencies? And here is also doing it correctly. Let's try agent 3. Agent 3 is not able to return the results. And let's try asking the first question as well. And it's able to answer the first question correctly. So some of my key learnings from this exercise is that the first one we already discussed, which is that the structure of the training data set could impact the performance of the agent fairly significantly. Datasets that more closely mirror the agent's task seem to produce a better fine-tuned model. We find that it will also be useful to investigate the model performance based on improved training data. Although it's difficult to find publicly available accounting policy data for training, for enterprise adoption, companies can consider hiring accounting specialists to manually prepare training data sets by reading and summarizing relevant accounting policies and building out questions, context, and answers. Larger models are hard to run with our GPU machines. We ran this notebook on Google Colab, and even with a Colab Plus subscription, we ran out of compute fairly quickly. We're using the smaller 8 billion parameter model instead of the larger 70 billion parameters model, and we've adjusted some of the training parameters, things like limiting the training steps to 100 steps. This technology is very costly. And last but not the least, we saw from the demo that the agents can generate different responses from the same question. Some responses are correct and some are not. We expect this technology to reduce an accountant's manual workflow, but their subject matter expertise is still required to ensure that their company's financial statements meet the SEC GAAP requirements. In conclusion, we find that Agent 1 is a reasonable agent for solving the problem statement, provided that its responses are checked by professional accountants. Nonetheless, this project demonstrates that it's possible to build a fairly powerful agent to answer accounting policy questions even with imperfect training data.